I'm from based on my accent, but Father already told you. From Sydney, Australia, and now living in Derry. And I've been a Franciscan friar for about 16 years and a priest for about 4 years. I just wanted to share a little bit about my story. And whenever I tell my story, guys, it's always unique, you know, because your history, my history is so rich and so there's so much you could say, hey. But just to begin, I am the oldest of 6 kids. So I have a twin brother, identical twin brother, who's now married and has his first son. And I have another younger brother and then 3 younger sisters. And I grew up in Sydney, and I just, so my twin brother and I, we loved it there in Sydney because Sydney's a great, the weather you had yesterday, how good was that, right? Horrible? Too hot. Too hot. Okay, if you're not used to it, too hot, hey? I loved it. I would love that to be like all year round, yeah. Because for me, growing up, it meant time at the beach, time in the water. I used to love to surf and play basketball, football, cricket, and rugby, and a whole bunch of different things, skateboarding. But you know, guys, when I was like 5 years old, I remember the first day of school, and I remember not going to preschool. Do you guys have preschool here? Like it's before kindergarten. There's what's it called? Nursery. So did everyone go to nursery? Pretty much everyone. So I didn't go to nursery. My twin brother and I didn't go to nursery. So when the first day of kindergarten came, I was totally freaked out, totally afraid, totally scared. I remember my mum bringing my brother and I to school, and we just held on to one on either leg, just holding on because we were so afraid. And then the first day, the teacher said, we got Tristan and Alexander. That Tristan was my name before Father Francesco, which is my religious name. And we got Tristan and Alexander here, and they're a bit afraid and they're a bit scared because it's their first day of school and they didn't go to nursery or they didn't go to preschool. And so here they are. And for whatever reason, guys, just being in front of a group of people like this right now, I was even more freaked out, even more scared. And from that point on, I had this massive fear of public speaking. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you're afraid of public speaking, but maybe some of you are afraid of public speaking, of being in front of a crowd like this and speaking to people. It was like the greatest fear of my life. And so it's interesting, hey, that I'm standing here in front of 200 kids, you all talking to you, because I used to just shake and my eyes would start to water, and it was terrible. It was terrible. So then growing up, like I said, just love the outdoors, the surf. Is that me? Sorry. I love the outdoors, and when I was about 7 years old, does everyone know that song, "Here I Am, Lord"? Here I am, Lord. Have you heard it before? Here I am, Lord. I'm a bad singer. Is it I, Lord? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? We were singing that in school, and it was the first sense that I ever had that God was present. It was like He was in the room. And not only was He, it felt like He was in the room. I couldn't see Him, but I just knew He was there. it was also the first time that I felt like he was inviting me to follow him, to live my life for him. And I didn't know what it meant, so I was only like 7 years old. So anyway, through the teenage years, and honestly, my mum and my dad and my sisters and brothers would go to Mass every Sunday, but that was about all. Apart from a prayer that Mum and Dad taught us before going to bed. We just prayed to Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and we just asked them to look after us as we slept. See, I'm holding this little mini rosary, right? It's just 11 beads, one for the Our Father and 10 for the Hail Marys. And, I just hold that because Mary has become such an important part of my life. I have an amazing mum back in Sydney, but I have an even better, even greater mum in heaven, and it's Our Lady. And she said to a Mexican man back in the 1500s, she said, "You don't have to worry about anything because I am your mother and I'm with you and I love you. You don't have to worry about anything. So whatever you're worried about, you don't have to worry about it because I'm with you and I love you." And so that's Mary. And so anyway, I continued through my teenage years, and honestly, I just started to get involved with girls and drinking and parties and stuff, and yet I always believed that God was there, and so started to do all that, and then when I was about 17, Mum got cancer, and it was really serious. She got cancer to the point where it would spread throughout her whole body, started in her lymph nodes in her neck and spread throughout her whole body. And she needed chemotherapy, radiation, eventually a bone marrow transplant, like all the treatment you can get, she needed. And that was a real turning point for my dad, my mom, and my brothers and sisters, because we knew that Mum might not have long to live. And so honestly, just going to Mass once a week, every Sunday, we realized that wasn't enough. And so as a family, we began to pray together that God would look after Mum, that she would be taken care of, that she would be healed of the cancer. And thankfully, she's still alive today. And that was about almost over 20 years ago now. So she's still alive today, thank God. But it was also that year, when I was 17, that I had the first sense that God was calling me to be a priest, and or to be I didn't really know what a Franciscan was or what a religious was. I knew what a priest was, and I felt like maybe God was calling me to be a priest. And I remember what I was afraid of. Anyone remember what I was really afraid of as a kid? Public speaking. And what do priests do, apart from a lot of other things? They speak to big crowds. Exactly. And so when I sensed like God was calling me to be a priest, I was like even more afraid. Because if that's what His plan was for my life, and that's what I would have to do, I didn't want to do it. So for the next few years, I tried to keep God kind of at a distance, You know those earmuffs people put on in a plane or when they're mowing the lawn? You know those things? To block out the noise? I felt like I was doing that with God. So I wouldn't have to hear that maybe He was calling me to be a priest. And, but the truth is that a vocation to the priesthood or to the religious life is something that God puts in your heart. And so it's a call that it comes from without, but it also comes from within. In the sense that it's not only what God wants for some of us, but it's also what we really want as well. Guys, the plan or the purpose or the vocation that God has for each one of you, whether it's to be married, for most of you it will be to be married, for some of you to be a religious sister or a religious brother, for some of you to be a priest. Whatever your vocation is, you don't have to be afraid of it, because when you live it, when you say yes to it, it brings about your greatest joy, your greatest peace, your greatest happiness. That's what I was afraid that it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen if I was a priest. So I tried to block God out by putting those earmuffs on, so to speak. And so what did I do? Who was the first pope? What'd you say? Benedict? Not Benedict. The first pope, way back in the beginning. Does anyone know? Peter. Good word. Jesus' disciple Peter. What happened at the very beginning? What was Peter doing when Jesus said, "Follow me, follow me"? What was Peter doing? Yeah, he was fishing. He was in his boat, in the water, fishing. And when Jesus comes into each of our lives, guys, and we encounter him in a real way, when we know he's present, we know he's real. Maybe some of you have experienced him already. Maybe you're kind of waiting for that moment when Jesus becomes not just an idea or a distant figure, but a person close to you. When it happens just like it happened for Peter. Peter was doing something that he loved to do. I think he loved to do it, although it was also his job. He was a fisherman. He did that for a living. And then Jesus walks along the beach. He sees Peter. And he says, "Follow me." And in a sense, Jesus did that for me through a particular person. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to be on the lookout for. Jesus will use particular people in your life to communicate that he's with you and that he loves you and that he's calling you. People that maybe for me it was a priest named Father Joe. Now, Father Joe came into my life, and Father Joe was unlike any other person that I had met, in the sense that he seemed to have a real relationship with God, and he seemed to be also the most normal person. So he would stand there, and he would just smoke. He was a smoker. He would smoke his cigarette and just tell me about Jesus, like he was his best friend. And I just remember there was something about Father Joe for me that brought Jesus to life and made me want to know Jesus. And Father Joe taught me how to pray. he taught me how to pray, and he invited me to go on a retreat. And it was there that I discovered that God was speaking to me personally in my heart. And honestly, guys, I was about 20 at that time, and I still was resisting being a priest. Because I still, all through my life, from a young age, I wanted to get married, have children, and live and hopefully have a house near the beach so I can go surfing every day. That was what I hoped would happen. And so I was holding on to that hope even at the age of 20. Remember, I had those earmuffs on. I was trying to keep God at a distance. I didn't want to be called to the priesthood, but it seemed like he was calling me. And I still wanted to get married and have a family. So what did I do? Well, I went to a very Catholic university in America called Franciscan University, Steubenville. Has anyone heard of it? No? It's pretty well known. And I'd heard that when you go to this university, there's so many amazing young Catholic women there that if you're a young Catholic guy, you're likely to meet someone and get married. And so what did I do? I went to this Catholic university, again, hoping that I would get married, but really knowing deep in my heart that, I think God is calling me to be a priest. And so, anyway, I went there, and what happened? Well, a few things happened, but I'll say three pivotal things. Three really important things happened. The first was I met the one. I met the one. You know, the one, the girl that you guys are hoping to meet one day, right? The guy that you girls are hoping to meet one day, the one. We call it the one. That's what we call it growing up. I don't know what you guys call it. The one that we're going to marry, right? I met the one. At least I thought it was the one. Her name was Sarah. And I was sure, this God had finally brought this amazing person into my life, and I was finally gonna put this priesthood idea away, get married. Maybe she'd be up for moving back to Australia, get a house near the beach, and whatever. Anyway, I was talking to a priest while I was there, and he said, well, what about this priesthood thing? It's not going away. I said, yeah, it's not going away, but I think, it'll go away in time. He's like, no, look, you got to take time to face it. Because if you don't face it, if you don't deal with it, you're always going to wonder, and you're not going to have peace. You're not going to have peace. So he says, you got to face it. So I knew about these guys in New York City who worked and lived in the Bronx and wore these grey habits like the one I'm wearing now. I knew about them because of Father Joe, the priest back in Australia. He had told me about these guys in New York, and he knew one of them. He was friends with one of them. And so that's how I knew about them. And from where I was in Ohio at the university to New York City, it was about 8 hours drive. And so I took a visit out to New York and stayed with these friars or monks, as you guys some people call them, right there in New York City. And I walked into the friary, and I was greeted by Father Luke and Father Sebastian, and Father Luke had a beard down to his waist, so like really long, And Father Sebastian had a big bushy beard as well. And he opened the Bible to me, and he was all excited about the Word of God. And anyway, I stayed a few days with them, and they showed me to my room, and it was just a mat on the floor, really bare room, just a wooden floor with a mat on the floor to sleep on, a wooden desk, and that was it. I stayed with them, I prayed with them, I helped them at the homeless shelter and the soup kitchen for the homeless, that they would serve the homeless, they would provide shelter for them, they would provide meals for them, and I worked alongside them in New York, and then I went back to the university. And honestly, guys, something happened when I was staying with the brothers, because I think, what is the theme of this retreat? Is it belonging, or I belong, or is that right? The theme of this week? What is it? Hope. Is it hope? Okay. It's not belonging. No? It is belonging. Maybe it's belonging and hope. Maybe it's both. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The reason I mention belonging, guys, is because when I spent those few days with the friars, I finally felt at home. I finally felt like I was home. And that's a good indication that you've discovered something about where you're meant to be. You feel like you've arrived at home. You know, you feel like you belong. Well, what about the girl? What about Sarah? Maybe you're wondering. And honestly, now I was torn, right? Because I was attracted to Sarah and the potential of being married to this wonderful person. And I was also attracted to following Jesus totally in this radical way of life, serving the poor in the Bronx in New York City, giving my life totally to Jesus, just going all in as a friar. And so I was torn. Which path should I choose? Which path should I choose? And well, it's obvious which path I chose, right? It's obvious which path I chose, and what else can I say about that? Yeah. Maybe I'll leave it there. I'll just finish with, it was only 2 years, actually, it was only from the time that I went to that university and met Sarah and then joined the community in New York City. That period was only about 6 months. It didn't take long. And I was only 22 years old when I joined the community in the Bronx there. And now I'm 38 years old, so about 16 years ago. And our mission and our life is first and foremost, before anything else, is to follow Jesus with our whole life, with our whole heart, with our whole mind, with all of our strength. Because you know what I realized? I realized at some point along the line that there's no one who's worth your life and my life and giving it all than Jesus. He's worth it all. It's the only reason that I left Australia to go to New York, and then I've lived in Texas and I've lived in London, and now I've been sent here to Derry, and the only reason that makes sense, the only reason that I sleep on a mattress on the floor, that we choose not to have our own money or material possessions, that we choose not to get married and have children of our own, that we choose to go anywhere where our community might send us, the only reason that makes sense is because Jesus is totally worth it. Jesus is totally worth it. And I genuinely pray that you guys discover that that's true. Because you can hear it from me, but until you discover that that's true, it's just words. It's just words. And yeah, I would ask Our Lady, I would ask, if you want to know that that's true, ask Mary to show you that that's true, that Jesus is the most amazing person that there is. Not that there was, that there is, because he is alive. He's with us in the tabernacle. And he's with us all the time. Ask Mary to show you that is true. Before I hand the mic back, maybe question. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Who's older? So I'm the oldest by 10 minutes. Yeah. In the rugby? Okay, so the question was, New Zealand are playing Ireland in the rugby. Who am I rooting for? Ireland. Thank you. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in Ireland. I know that's. They just won 2-1, yeah. Yeah. No, Australia is arch rivals of New Zealand in the rugby, so we go for any team that's playing them. Good question. So the question was, do I have any religious people that I look up to, that I am inspired by? Yeah, that's a great question. And well, St. Francis is an obvious one. St. Francis, what inspired me so much about St. Francis was that he was all in. You know when someone is like totally passionate and they're just all in for one thing? It's what made, like I was a fan of Michael Jordan. Does everyone know who Michael Jordan is? So I would say the greatest basketball player of all time. What made him so great, what made him maybe the greatest ever, is his passion for the game of basketball, right? You can have a lot of talent, but if you don't have the passion and the drive to be the best, you won't be. You could think of, that's probably true in other sports and other activities as well. But for St. Francis, his passion was Jesus. The guy was totally in love with Jesus. I mean, it was, and everything that Jesus was about. And so there was something that inspired me so much about Francis, the way that he loved Jesus and gave everything, literally gave everything for Jesus, and inspired. Do you know how many people were in a habit at the end of St. Francis's life, trying to live the same way of life that he was living? So Francis started following Jesus. He put on some kind of rags as clothes. You know, Francis loved to party, he loved money, he loved nice clothes, and he loved to be the center of attention. He loved to party, he loved money, he loved nice clothes, and he loved to be the center of attention. And that's what he was like as a teenager and then as a young adult. And then he encountered Jesus, and it changed everything. And he threw away his nice clothes and put on some rags, and he began to beg for his food and to be poor and to serve the most poor in the society in which he lives. Does anyone know the most poor people at St. Francis's time? Who the most poor people were? People with leprosy, exactly. People with leprosy. And Francis loved the people with leprosy. Everyone else was like, we don't want to know you. You have to go outside the town and live in these camps outside the town, and you have to let us know, ring a bell if you're close by so that we can go the other direction, because you are contagious, and if we catch what you have, we might die as well. So you have to stay outside the camp. Everyone else said, get away from us. Do you know what St. Francis did? He was like that as well. He hated to even look at lepers. Not only the smell was too much for Francis, even like looking at a leper, when he saw a leper, he couldn't stand it. Like I said, he liked nice things, he liked nice clothes, he liked money, he liked to be the center of attention, and he hated just the sight of a leper. And then Jesus came into his life, and just totally, Francis did a 180, because Francis discovered that in the leper, in the most poor person, think about the most poor person that you guys have ever seen. Maybe a homeless person, or a person with a physical deformity, or something that makes other people want to turn away from them. Think about that person that you've maybe seen before. Jesus is present in those people, guys. Jesus said, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. Jesus is present in the most poor and neglected and rejected person in society. So when you see them, don't turn your back on them. Love them. Love them. And that's what Francis began to do. He began to love when he saw that God made him realize that he was present, that Jesus was present in the leper. So much so that one day, Francis is on his horse. He's riding a horse. That's what they rode back then to get around. He sees a leper, and remember before, he would just ride the other way. Couldn't even stand to look at him. Now, he stops. He gets off his horse. He walks up to the leper. Remember, the lepers at that time are totally contagious. People think if you get what they have, if you're near them, you'll get what they have, and you'll end up, your skin will begin to rot, your limbs will begin to rot, eventually you will die, and you have to live outside the camp. Francis knows all this, but now he knows, he senses that Jesus is present in this poor person, and he walks up to this poor person. He gets off his horse, walks up to them. You know what he does? He not only gives the leper some money, he kisses the leper. He kisses the leper on the face. Back then, that's like a death sentence. It's a death sentence. But Francis is so convinced that Jesus is present, he kisses the leper. He gets back on his horse and he looks around and the leper's gone. And he knows for sure that the one that he just kissed was really Jesus. And so Francis is someone who still inspires me today. You know, he's a religious inspiration. But there's so many others, guys, so many saints Think of it like more recently, St. John Paul II. That guy was an absolute hero. He was an absolute hero. He's amazing. St. John Paul II, St. Maximilian Kolbe, Mother Teresa. There's people in my own life as well that I'm inspired by. I think my twin brother is pretty amazing. And he's married and he's got a son now, and he's incredible to me. So the inspirational people in your lives, think of the saints, and then think of actually people that you actually know, people that inspire you, that make you want to be better. Pay attention to those people. Stay close to those people. Maybe think of at least one person right now in your mind that inspires you, that makes you want to be a better person, that you want to be a little bit more like them. Maybe they have more freedom, more joy, more courage, more love. Think of those people in your life. Be inspired by them. Stay close to them. Learn from them. Don't think you have it all together. None of us have it all together. Those who are willing to learn from those who are ahead of them are the ones who become great. St. John Paul II, John Paul the Great, he became great because he learned from others. His father, other great figures in his life, the saints, and ultimately Jesus and Mary. So that's a great question. Sorry, that's a long answer to your question, but thanks for... Mm-hmm. The leper? So after St. Francis kissed the leper, did he get leprosy? The answer is no, he didn't. So it was a miracle. It was a real miracle. What is a leper? It's a good question. So a leper is someone with the disease called leprosy. So the disease is leprosy. We call someone with leprosy, well, they used to be called a leper. And it was, in a way, it's a little bit, we shouldn't identify someone with the disease that they have, but that's what people used to do. And so someone with leprosy. And someone with leprosy, it's a disease of I don't know too much about it, except that what happens when you get leprosy is your skin begins to decay, and your limbs begin to rot. So eventually, like, a leper's fingers fall off, their toes fall off, maybe their nose falls off, their ears fall off. They have sores around their mouth. It's a terrible, terrible disease. And yeah, so that's what someone with leprosy has. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yes. Okay. Sorry. Good question. When my mum had cancer, how often did I pray for her? Honestly, probably not as much as I should. That's the honest answer when I look back. But remember I said that, like, as a family, we began to pray for Mum. So I remember Dad would lead us, and it was probably at least once a day. And I remember that we began to go to Mass more frequently as a family, like together, rather than some of us going and some of us not going. We would go together. So, yeah, thank you. Is there a cure to leprosy? I believe there is now, because we've come a long way. St. Francis lived 800 years ago, so people still get leprosy, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhat treatable. If not a cure, I think it can be treated. Sorry, there was one more question. I just want to honor that. Did I care about Jesus and Mary before going to university? It's a great question, actually. I would put it this way. I believed that Jesus and Mary were real, that they were alive, that God was real, that Jesus was God. But honestly, it wasn't enough for me. It wasn't personal, you know? It was just an idea. And so I believed, but not enough to change my life. So I kind of still just did whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have a relationship with them. Yeah. Good question. Oh. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, my brother, he still lives in Sydney with his wife and his son, named John Francis. So Francis, his name before, do you know Francis is actually a nickname? Francis was the nickname that his dad called him. He was actually baptized John. So he grew up as John or Giovanni in Italian, and then his father went to France, came back, and he loved France so much that he started calling him Francesco, which means the Frenchman, Francesco, and that's my name now. So yeah, sorry, that's my brother still lives in Sydney. Yeah.
Tell us how old your habit is, Father.
I told these guys how old my habit is, so they can't answer the question. Anyone want to guess how old this is? 6 years more. Someone said 10. It's a good guess. It's about 10 or 12 years old.
Do you sew the patches in yourself whenever you tear holes in it? Would you get someone to do it for you?
I can't sew, so I don't. We have friends who we just give them the material and they sew the patches over the holes.
It's a great symbol of the poverty that you've promised to embrace. One more little thing. As a friar, you've got lots of people who come to you regularly for confession. Some of the guys here participating in our camp this week are going to have the opportunity a little bit later in the week to go to confession. Some people might feel a little bit nervous. Some people maybe haven't been to confession in a long while and are not quite sure what to do. Would you have any advice for them?
Confession. I wanted to... If I was going to say... I haven't told this story before because I just read it. And it's about St. Jerome. Does anyone know Saint Jerome was the saint who translated the Bible, right? So he translated the Bible from Aramaic into Latin. And so, anyway, it's Christmas time. And Saint Jerome wants to give Jesus a present for Christmas. And Saint Jerome says to Jesus, I want to give you my translation of the Bible. And Jesus says, I don't want that. And St. Jerome says, Jesus, what can I've worked so hard on translating the whole Bible. It's my gift to you. I want to give it to you. And Jesus says, I don't want that. So St. Jerome says, Jesus, what present do you want for Christmas? And Jesus says, it would give me joy. It would bring me joy if you gave me your sins. If you gave me your sins. Guys, Jesus, he died, he suffered and he died for your sins. If you hold on to them and you don't confess them, you're not giving him the thing that he died for. He wants to take your sins and then give you new life. And when we give him our sins, we basically make room for his life in us. And confession is such an amazing sacrament. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing that any of the priests are ever scandalized by. We're never surprised by anything. We've heard everything, almost everything, that there is every bad thing that you could think of. Somewhere along the line, the priest will encounter that in confession. And honestly, the more honest the confession is, the more joy that it brings me personally as a priest, because I know that the person is making a good confession. Have you guys, you don't have to raise your hand, but you ever made a confession where you're holding that one thing back that you feel too humiliated to say? There's that one thing in your life that you're just too embarrassed to tell the priest? You ever done a confession like that, where you tell a bunch of things, but then there's that one or two things that you're just too embarrassed to say? Guys, we've all done that. But let me tell you that if you do that, the confession is not a good confession. And you have to go to confession again, because it's only a good confession when you confess everything. When you confess everything. That's what makes it a good confession. That's what opens your heart to receive the grace that he wants to give you. So whatever that one thing is that you're most embarrassed to say it. Say it and know that brings joy to Jesus. Because again, that's what he suffered for. That's what he died for. So don't hold it back. And honestly, you will feel 100 times lighter. You will feel freer. You won't feel burdened. Because those sins just keep us burdened and weighed down and sad. When we go to confession, we just tell the priest honestly, and we're set free, We all sin again, but don't, that one thing, remember, the one thing that you're embarrassed about, don't hold it back, because you need to tell the priest that thing to make it a good confession. And if you're worried, well, take Mary's hand, take your rosary, take Our Lady's hand. Imagine you're holding her hand, she's taking you into the confessional, and confess as you hold her hand, as you hold that rosary. And she'll help you. She'll help you to be honest. She'll help you to be straight, direct, and then a good confession, then you can, when you receive Jesus, when you go to Mass, you're able to come and receive Jesus in a way that is worthy of him, that you're prepared. Because when we hold that one thing back that we're embarrassed about, and then we go to communion, guys, communion is the most intimate, sacred moment with Jesus, and we need to be prepared for that. And that's why we need to make a good confession. So that's the advice I would give. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Father Francesco. You were really, really honest, and I'm sure you've inspired us all. We could all connect with your story there. It's an amazing story, so thank you for coming and sharing it with us. Do we still have the slip and slide over there? What do you think? Will he go on it? You can set him a challenge later, seeing as the two sisters did it yesterday. There we go.
Okay, guys, could you pay it? Thank you very much. Excellent. Right, tomorrow morning, please, you pay attention tomorrow. Once you come in at different times tomorrow, because you have to come on different times. So if you are going to Carramina, if you're going kayaking, or if you're going surfing, come in at 9. I'll put this on Facebook. So Carramina, kayaking and surfing, come in at 9. And you get confessions, and your bus is going first tomorrow. If you're going to the lake, all 200 of you, come in at 9:20. Okay. And if you're going to Limitless, come in at 20 to 10. I'll put it on Facebook, I'll save your times. It's just to put less numbers for the priest. Afternoon activities, guys, if you pay attention, I'll talk you through this afternoon activities and get you out as quick as we can. Guys, so primary school boys are doing slip and slide on the grass. Primary school girls are doing netball down at the basketball court with Katrina. Year 8, Year 9 boys, indoor football over in St Mary's, same boys as yesterday, that would help. Year 8, Year 9 girls are doing the team building with me down on the playground. Cage football with those boys that did it at lunch would be great. Cage football will be for Year 10 and Year 11 boys, and there's archery for Year 10 and Year 11 girls in the assembly hall. Is that okay? So quickly tomorrow morning again, 9 o'clock for Carabiner, kayaking and surfing. Shh, boys. You don't hear me, lads? 9:20, the lake, and 9:40, limitless. So just follow Kevin out from the backyard and go to your activities. And thanks again, Father Francisco. Thank you very much.
I'm going surfing. Will there be a wetsuit tonight?
Oh, right.
That's right. I have my own bag.
Oh, you can put it.
Actually, I have to see.
Oh, whatever you want to do. Bring your Ruben down there. Do you think you'd have any Ruben Limitless?
Oh, you can go to limitless, John. This is Sean Logue. Sean Gormley goes where he wants.
Yeah. Wait, what time is it again? Was it like?
We already did this.
Use our archery. What you use?
That's great.
Get through me.